Until last week, Donald Trump was warning that New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani was going to turn the city into a hellhole. So people expected, fireworks when they met at the White House on Friday. Those people were very shocked to see that Trump was swooning over him afterwards. Did you see this? Let's watch the clip.
I think you're going to have, hopefully, a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am. I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually.
Okay, so I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what just happened, what we all just witnessed on live television, this is one of those moments. You know the kind I'm talking about. The kind where you're watching the news and your jaw just drops, like actually drops, and you look around the room to see if anyone else just saw what you saw. You're sitting there in disbelief, wondering if maybe you misheard something. But no, you heard it right. Everyone heard it right. And now nobody knows what to do about it. That's what happened last night. One of President Trump's own lawyers, his own attorney, went on live TV and basically threw the entire legal team under the bus, on camera, with millions of people watching. This wasn't behind closed doors. This wasn't off the record. This was broadcast to the entire nation in real time. In the White House? Come on. They had no idea what to do. It was chaos. Pure chaos. The kind of chaos that makes you wonder if anyone over there is actually in charge. The kind of chaos that makes you question everything you thought you knew about how this administration operates. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Just days ago, you referred to President Trump as a despot who had betrayed the country. You said you'd be his worst nightmare and accused him of having a fascist agenda.
What I really appreciate about the president is that the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers.
And I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not that insulting. I think he'll change his mind after we get to working together.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay, you can just say yes.
Okay.
It's easier. It's easier.
Now look, we've seen a lot of wild stuff over the past few years. I mean, this is Trump we're talking about. The man attracts controversy like a magnet. Every single week there's something new. But this is different. This isn't some random leak from an anonymous source. This isn't some reporter claiming they have insider information. No. This was a senior attorney, someone who's supposed to be defending the president, going on MSNBC and saying out loud on the record that some members of Trump's legal team may have gone too far. Those were her exact words. May have gone too far. And she said it with a straight face, like she was just casually mentioning the weather. Oh yeah, it might rain tomorrow. Also, we might have broken some rules defending the president. No big deal. Nothing to see here, folks. Are you kidding me? Can you believe this? And then within minutes, the White House press secretary is on CNN calling the whole thing a firestorm of legal chaos. His words, not mine. A firestorm of legal chaos coming from the White House about the president's own legal team. Like they couldn't even pretend everything was fine. They couldn't even fake it for 5 minutes. They couldn't even put on a brave face and tell everyone to calm down. Instead, they went on national television and confirmed that yes, this is exactly as bad as it looks. Maybe even worse. This is wild. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to break this whole thing down piece by piece because there's a lot more going on here than what you saw in that 30-second clip on Twitter. Yeah, the hashtag Trump lawyer was trending. Over 250,000 tweets in just 2 hours. People were going absolutely nuts online. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone was sharing the clip. But most people only saw the surface level stuff. They saw the headline. They saw the clip. And they moved on with their day. They didn't dig deeper. They didn't ask the important questions. But not us. We're going deeper. Because here's the thing. This isn't just about one lawyer saying something dumb on TV. This is about something much bigger. This is about the cracks forming in the foundation. The infighting. The backstabbing. The kind of stuff that happens when things start falling apart behind closed doors. The kind of stuff that usually stays hidden until it's too late. Until one attorney decided to blow the whole thing wide open on live television for everyone to see. And look, I'm not saying Trump is in trouble. I'm not making predictions here. But what I am saying is when your own lawyer goes on national television and admits that your team might have crossed the line, That's not nothing. That's a big deal. That's the kind of thing that keeps people up at night. That's the kind of thing that makes prosecutors perk up and start taking notes. Think about it. If you were being investigated, if the feds were coming after you, and your lawyer went on TV and said, yeah, we might have messed up, you'd be furious, right? You'd be losing your mind. You'd be on the phone screaming at everyone. And that's exactly what's happening right now inside the White House. People are scrambling. Phones are ringing off the hook. Emergency meetings are being called because nobody saw this coming. Nobody was prepared for this. The thing is, Trump has been through a lot of legal battles. The man has more lawyers than most people have shoes. He's used to fighting. He's used to chaos. But even by his standards, this is next level. Because usually, the chaos comes from outside. It comes from prosecutors. It comes from the media. But this came from inside. From his own team. From someone who was supposed to have his back. And that changes everything. So stick with me, because we're going to go through all of it. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly why this story is so important. All right. So let me set the scene for you. Because if you didn't catch the actual interview, if you just saw the clips floating around online, you're missing some important context. And context matters here. A lot. You can't just watch a 30-second clip and think you understand the whole picture. You need to know what led up to this moment. You need to know who the players are. You need to understand why this particular interview on this particular day turned into such a massive disaster for the Trump administration. It's Tuesday evening, November 25th. It's around 5:41 p.m. Eastern Time. And Jane Smith, one of Trump's senior attorneys, she's doing an interview on MSNBC. Now, normally, these interviews are pretty standard. The lawyer goes on, they defend their client, they spin everything to make Trump look good, they dodge tough questions, they pivot to talking points. They say a whole lot of nothing while sounding very professional. That's the playbook. That's what always happens. These lawyers are trained for this stuff. They know how to handle hostile interviews. They know how to stay on message. They know how to avoid saying anything that could come back to bite them later. But not this time. This time something went wrong. And honestly, I'm still trying to figure out what she was thinking. Because what came out of her mouth, it was like she forgot which team she was playing for. It was like she suddenly forgot who was paying her bills. She said, and this is a direct quote, "Some members of Trump's team may have gone too far in efforts to challenge federal indictments." Gone too far. Now let's break that down. Because those three words, gone too far, that's lawyer speak, for we might have broken the rules. That's lawyer speak, for there could be problems. And when a lawyer admits that on national television, while their client is the sitting president of the United States, that's not a mistake. That's a bomb going off. That's a grenade being thrown into the middle of everything. That's the kind of statement that prosecutors clip and save and use in court filings. And here's the thing that most people don't understand. Lawyers are trained to be careful with their words. Every single thing they say is calculated. They think about it. They plan it. They rehearse it. They run it by other lawyers. They don't just accidentally admit to wrongdoing. They don't slip up and say, oops, we might have crossed the line. That doesn't happen. That's not how lawyers work. So either Jane Smith had a complete mental breakdown on live TV, or she said what she said on purpose. And honestly, I don't know which option is worse. Both scenarios are absolutely terrifying if you're sitting in the White House right now. Both scenarios mean that something has gone very, very wrong inside Trump's inner circle. Let's talk about the reaction, because it was immediate, it was intense, and it was, chaotic. Like watching a building catch fire in real time, like watching a car crash in slow motion. You couldn't look away, even if you wanted to. Within minutes of that interview airing, the White House press secretary, Mark Nichols, was on CNN, and he was not happy. You could see it on his face. You could hear it in his voice. He was sweating. He was stumbling over his words. He called the whole thing a firestorm of legal chaos the public cannot ignore. That's a direct quote. And you could just tell from the way he was talking that nobody in the White House saw this coming. They were blindsided, completely blindsided, caught totally off guard. There was no prepared statement. There was no coordinated response. There was just panic and damage control and people scrambling to figure out what just happened. And that's what makes this so fascinating. Because think about it. The White House has armies of people whose entire job is to manage crises. They have communications teams. They have legal teams. They have strategy teams. They have people monitoring every news channel 24 hours a day. They spend all day planning for every possible scenario. They run drills. They prepare talking points. And somehow, they were caught off guard by one of their own lawyers. That tells you something, right? That tells you that whatever Jane Smith said, it wasn't part of the plan. It wasn't coordinated. It wasn't approved. She went rogue, she went completely off script, and now we're seeing the fallout, the aftermath, the chaos, the finger pointing, all of it playing out in real time for the whole country to watch. Social media exploded. The hashtag Trump lawyer was trending within an hour, over 250,000 tweets in just 2 hours. People were losing their minds. Everyone had an opinion. Memes were being created. Hot takes were flying everywhere. Cable news couldn't get enough of it. And look, I get it. This is the kind of story that makes you want to grab some popcorn and just watch everything unfold. It's entertaining. It's dramatic. It's Trump. But here's where I need you to pay attention, because there's a deeper layer to this story that most people are missing. There's more going on than just the drama. There's more going on than just one lawyer saying something stupid on television. This isn't just about one interview. This isn't just about one lawyer making a mistake. This is about a pattern of infighting, a pattern of division, a pattern that we've seen before, a pattern that keeps repeating itself over and over again. Remember 2020? Remember the whole election challenge thing? Remember how Trump's legal team kept contradicting each other? Remember how some lawyers would say one thing in public and then say something completely different in court? Remember Rudy Giuliani and all his press conferences? Remember Sidney Powell and the Kraken? Remember all the chaos? Remember how lawyers kept quitting and getting fired and turning on each other? Well, guess what? It's happening again. And this time it's happening while Trump is the sitting president, while he's supposed to be running the country, while he's supposed to be focused on governing. Instead, his own legal team is falling apart on live television. His own people are going rogue and saying things that could hurt him. Legal analyst Rachel Torres, she was on Fox News talking about this, and she said something really interesting. She said, and I'm paraphrasing here, this kind of public division is rare and potentially damaging for Trump's legal and political future. Public division, that's the key phrase. That's what you need to focus on. Because normally, even when there's fighting behind the scenes, even when lawyers disagree, they keep it private. They handle it internally. They close the doors and hash it out. They don't go on national television and air their dirty laundry for the whole world to see. That's just not done. That breaks every rule of legal strategy and crisis management. But that's exactly what happened here. And once something like this goes public, you can't take it back. You can't unring that bell. The damage is done. It's out there forever. It's been recorded and clipped and shared millions of times. And here's why this matters beyond just the drama. Here's why you should actually care about this story. Trump is under intense legal scrutiny right now. There are multiple investigations, multiple cases, multiple prosecutors looking at different aspects of his actions. And when you're facing that kind of pressure, the last thing you need is your own team turning on you. The last thing you need is your own lawyer undermining your defense. Because here's the reality. Prosecutors watch these interviews. They take notes. They look for inconsistencies. They look for admissions. And when one of Trump's own attorneys says we may have gone too far, that's not just a soundbite. That's potential evidence. That's something that can be used in court. That's something that can come back to haunt you. So this wasn't just embarrassing. It was potentially damaging to Trump's legal defense. It was potentially giving ammunition to his enemies. And let me tell you something else. Something that people aren't really talking about. This whole situation, it feeds into a broader narrative. A narrative about chaos. A narrative about dysfunction. A narrative about whether or not the people around Trump actually know what they're doing. The White House is supposed to project stability. They're supposed to project competence. They're supposed to make Americans feel like everything is under control. But when you have your own lawyer going on TV and admitting mistakes, when you have your own press secretary calling it a firestorm, that's not stability. That's panic. That's chaos. That's exactly what you don't want. And voters notice that stuff. They might not follow every detail of every legal case, but they notice when things look messy. They notice when things look out of control. And that can have real consequences. That can affect polls. That can affect public opinion. That can affect everything. So yeah, this story matters a lot more than most people realize. Okay? So let's break this down. Let's talk about what actually happened, why it happened, and what comes next. Because there are a few key points here that you really need to understand. A few things that are going to help you make sense of all this chaos. I'm going to walk you through this step by step, point by point. So by the end of this, you'll know exactly what happened and why it matters so much. Point number 1. The timing of this interview was absolutely terrible. Like, of all the times for something like this to happen, this might be the worst possible moment. Trump is dealing with multiple legal challenges right now. The federal indictments, the investigations, the court dates, all of it. There's so much going on. The legal pressure is intense, and his team is supposed to be presenting a united front. They're supposed to be on the same page. They're supposed to be defending him with one voice, one message, one strategy. Instead, they're on TV contradicting each other. And not just in small ways. We're talking about a senior attorney admitting that the team may have gone too far. That's huge. That's massive. That's the kind of statement that can be used against Trump in court. That's the kind of statement that prosecutors dream about. That's the kind of statement that makes defense lawyers wake up in a cold sweat. And the timing? Look, it's almost like someone wanted this to happen at the worst possible moment. I'm not saying it was intentional. I'm not making accusations here. But come on, you have to wonder, right? You have to ask yourself, why would a senior attorney go on national television and say something like this? What was she thinking? What was the strategy? What was the end game? Because I'll tell you what, there was no strategy. This was a disaster. Pure and simple. This was a complete and total failure of message discipline. Point number 2. The White House response made everything worse. Okay, so here's the thing about crisis management. Rule number 1, don't panic. Rule number 2, don't draw more attention to the crisis. And rule number 3, have a coordinated message. Keep everyone on the same page. Speak with one voice. Make sure everyone knows what to say and what not to say. These are basic principles. These are things that every communications professional learns on day 1. The White House broke all 3 rules. They panicked, they drew attention to it, and their message was all over the place. Instead of downplaying the interview, instead of ignoring it and letting it fade away, the press secretary went on CNN and called it a firestorm of legal chaos. Come on, that's the worst possible response. That's basically confirming that yes, this is a huge deal, and yes, we're freaking out about it. That's basically telling the whole world that you have no idea what you're doing. If they had just stayed quiet, if they had just let the news cycle move on, this story would have been dead within 24 hours. Maybe less. News moves fast these days. People have short attention spans. Something else would have come along and everyone would have forgotten about it. But by reacting the way they did, by using words like firestorm and chaos, they kept the story alive. They gave it oxygen. They made sure everyone would be talking about it. They made sure it would dominate the headlines for days instead of hours. And that's a rookie mistake. That's the kind of thing you learn not to do in Communications 101. But apparently the White House didn't get the memo. Point number 3. This reveals deeper problems within Trump's inner circle. And this is the part that really matters. Because what we saw yesterday, it wasn't just one bad interview. It was a symptom of something bigger, something deeper, something that's been brewing for a while. There's clearly infighting going on. There are clearly people who aren't on the same page. There are clearly tensions and disagreements and conflicts happening behind closed doors. Different factions are forming. Different groups are pointing fingers at each other. And when that kind of division becomes public, it's usually a sign that things are even worse behind closed doors. It's usually just the tip of the iceberg. Think about it. If a senior attorney is willing to say something like this on national television, imagine what she's saying in private meetings. Imagine what other people on the team are saying. Imagine the arguments, the finger pointing, the blame games, the screaming matches. That's what's happening right now inside Trump's orbit. And it's not good. Because when teams start fighting among themselves, when they stop trusting each other, when they start going rogue, that's when things really fall apart. That's when everything collapses. And look, this isn't the first time we've seen this. Trump's legal teams have always been a bit chaotic. There's always been turnover. There's always been drama. But this feels different. This feels like something bigger is brewing. This feels like we're watching the beginning of something major. Point number 4. The political implications are real and they're serious. Here's the thing that a lot of people forget. Every single thing that happens in Washington has political consequences. Every interview, every tweet, every statement, every mistake, it all matters. It all adds up. It all shapes public perception in ways that are hard to measure, but impossible to ignore. And what happened yesterday is going to affect how people see Trump. It's going to affect how people see his team. It's going to affect perceptions of competence and leadership. It's going to shape the narrative going forward. Now look, Trump's base is loyal. We all know that. They've stuck with him through a lot of controversy, through a lot of chaos. They've defended him when nobody else would. And a lot of them probably don't care about this story. They'll dismiss it as fake news or a media hit job or whatever. They'll find a way to spin it. But there are other voters out there. Swing voters. Undecided voters. People who are watching and waiting to see how things unfold. People who haven't made up their minds yet. And for those people, this kind of chaos matters. This kind of dysfunction matters. It affects their perception of whether Trump and his team have things under control. And that's something the White House should be worried about. Because governing isn't won just by appealing to your base. You need support from people in the middle. And when those people see your own lawyer admitting mistakes on TV, when they see your White House calling it a firestorm, That's not a good look. That's not inspiring confidence. So where do we go from here? Honestly, I don't know. And I don't think anyone does. This story is still developing. We're probably going to hear more in the coming days. There will be more interviews, more statements, more damage control attempts, more chaos, more drama. But one thing is clear. This was a bad day for Trump. A really bad day. And it's going to have consequences. Real consequences. The kind that don't just go away. The legal cases are still ongoing. The investigations are still happening. And now on top of all that, there are questions about whether his own team can be trusted to defend him properly. There are questions about loyalty. There are questions about competence. There are questions about everything. That's a lot to deal with, even for Trump, even for a guy who's been through as much as he has. So keep watching. Keep paying attention. Because this story isn't over. Not by a long shot. We're just getting started. And hey, if you made it this far, thank you. Seriously. I know this was a lot of information. I know it was a lot to take in, but this is the kind of story that deserves a deep dive. It deserves real analysis, not just sound bites and headlines, not just 30-second clips on social media. Because at the end of the day, what happens in Washington affects all of us. It affects our laws, it affects our policies, it affects our future. And we owe it to ourselves to pay attention, to stay informed, to understand what's really going on. All right, that's it for today. But trust me, there's a lot more coming. Because the way things are going, tomorrow is probably going to be even crazier than today. It always is. Stay tuned.